Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Living Astrology with Janet. It's time to grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back and relax while we chat about what's happening up in the sky above for this very busy astrological Gene Keys Human Design week, right? When we were doing the November look ahead, and this was way back the last Wednesday of October. It was amazing to see how packed November really was. And here we are, we're living out the second most packed week of the month. And actually, it might even be the most packed week of the month because every day except Sunday this week has something in it. And the second week of November at least had, well, same thing, just one day that had nothing in it. So be prepared, right? It's going to be a crazy kind of week. Now, when I say crazy, I don't really mean like you're going to be hair on fire, although you might be, kind of energy, but just a lot going on, whether that happens to be in your mind, a la Mercury retrograde, or if it happens to be in your emotional self because of the Grand Water Trine, or if it happens to be in the creative genius, passion part of your life. It might be all of the above, and it might be one or the other. And who knows, it could be going, back and forth throughout all of these different energies. So it's, good to know that there's a lot going on so that when you're feeling high one minute and low the next, you know why, right? Because it's not just you, it is all of this stuff that is happening up in the stars. Now, I want to review a little bit first, a Friday show, because I threw a lot out at you that day because I was kind of in a rush to make sure that you got the basics of this week ahead before we actually got into it. So I just want to review real quickly that we begin this week today with the Human Design Week, with the sun in the gate 14 called Creation and the Earth in the gate 2 called Allowing. So together, these two, the Earth and the sun, set this tone for our creating from a space of alignment, not from force, right? So we're allowing creative energy, we're allowing the manifestation to take place. And when you let your life set the pace for what is happening, then the path forward becomes unmistakably clear. Right? You don't have to worry about, am I doing this right? Am I doing this not right? You just go, right? You go with the flow. Now, we're also still moving through this Grand Water Trine. And I'm going to show the new moon chart here shortly. But the Grand Water Trine, so powerful in bringing us emotional alignment. And the planets involved in the Grand Water Trine are Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, and the sun in Scorpio, along with Mercury retrograde today as he moves backward into Scorpio. So the sun and Jupiter in this conglomeration of planets expands your confidence and your vision, allowing you to see the horizon, the broader view, as it were, of your life and of what it is that you're creating. The Sun-Saturn connection is about grounding in the vision in wisdom and maturity, right? Taking it and forming something with that creative energy. And then Sun Neptune also in this trine, softening the edges and opening up your intuitive and spiritual channels so that you can be more aligned, right, with your divine self and your physical human self. And this has been a supportive backdrop for Mercury in retrograde. And, I have had my Mercury retrograde issues. Trust me when I tell you. Technologically, of course, it's usually slapping me right there, and that's what's been happening. But there's also this invitation that I've been feeling to look deeper into the things that I really want to achieve in my life. In fact, I think I shared last week that one of my biggest questions to myself last week was, what is it that I want to achieve? What is it that I'm working toward? Because if I didn't even have a clear idea of what that was, then with this wonderful creative energy this week, it would be a hodgepodge hit miss of things that would happen or with results. So here is this opportunity then for everybody to ask yourself the biggest question of your life. right now, wherever you are, whether you're young and you're just getting started, whether you're in that middle space and you're looking to kind of crystallize your creative energy, or if you're older and you're trying to create the legacy or trying to get, pruning away all the things that don't matter to get to the heart of what matters for you. This is a great time for all of that, but it begins with the question, right? If you don't bother to ask the question, you're not going to get to any of those answers. So asking yourself and reconnecting with what's true for you beneath the surface. If you strip away all the things that you think you have to do or things that you have to be, then what's true is what's left, right? What's true, what's passionate is what's left. And as we step into this new week, then, astrologically and also from a human design perspective, everything is pointing you back to your creative essence and, reminding you that clarity arises when you stop pushing, right? When you stop pushing and you start allowing the earth, grounding us this week into the energy of allowing. I hope this makes sense for everybody. Now, as we're shifting into this new week, we also step right into Mercury in his retrograde phase, moving backward into the sign of Scorpio. So Mercury retrograde has started in Sagittarius, a sign that looks for the truth. It looks for adventure. It looks for the higher calling. And then Scorpio being the sign of depth, right? And passion and intensity. And as Mercury moves backward into the sign of Scorpio, it comes into an immediate opposition with the planet Uranus that's now at 29 degrees of Taurus. So we have a Scorpio-Taurus axis between the sun or between Mercury and Uranus. The sun will get involved too, but later in the week. And Mercury retrograde in Scorpio is already taking you inward, right? It's been pulling us into that inner space, helping us to uncover what's been hidden, what's been unspoken, what's been emotionally unresolved within each of us. But when Mercury faces off with Uranus, truth doesn't just whisper, it literally breaks through, right? And here's the interesting thing about Mercury and Uranus. Mercury rules the mind, the lower mind. So our thinking, logical mind, the mind that creates, images, the mind that compares and contrasts, the mind that has logic as a part of its inbuilt system. But Uranus is the higher mind. So the higher mind would be the mind that sees from the higher perspective, that is calculating information as it comes in from the universe. And these two then form a really beautiful energy together, both minds working, as it were, together. But this is an opposition. And an opposition does what? Goes in two different directions. It kind of pulls us in these two different directions. So what we have to work through is the opposition bringing sudden insights, maybe bringing surprising conversations with people, maybe unexpected shifts in your perspective. And when your perspective shifts, your beliefs can shift. And that was what Mercury was looking for all along when he first retrograded in Sagittarius, right? So we have the possibility that something coming out of left field, something that we didn't expect coming, that actually enlightens us in some way. And maybe it's exactly what you needed to see in this moment, right? So I never think of these, transits with Uranus can be shocking. It can be disheartening, disconcerting because it happens and you don't expect it. But it's probably exactly what it is that you need so that you can see what it is you need to see and do what it is that you need to do. Now, at the same time that Mercury is pulling in this opposition to Uranus, it's also forming a trine to Pisces, or to Neptune in Pisces, which is attuning us to our inner voice or our intuition. We're hearing from a higher perspective as well. And it can also be the voice of compassion and spiritual clarity that's all added into this mix of energies that are coming up. So this is where those sudden realizations that Mercury opposing Uranus brings don't feel chaotic, maybe they feel more like a relief, like, now I know what to do. Now I know where to go. And maybe it's like puzzle pieces that are just kind of sliding into connection and the truth finally finding its voice. And there's just this really interesting connection that we have this week to truth. I noticed this morning, and again, not to wax political here at all, but for weeks we have had a president who is avoiding anything to do with the Epstein files being broadcast or being released. Bits and pieces have been released over the course of time, so we all know pretty much what they say, but without actually seeing what it is that they say. And then this morning he changes tact and says he literally tells Congress that he thinks that they should release those files. Well, truth? Is he ready to face the truth? Or is it a redacted, whitewashed version of that truth? It'll be very interesting to see how this plays out. But with the force of energy that is on truth, I don't know that we see the truth coming from outside of us. I don't think it's like, voila, suddenly all of the truths are real, or all of the energy things that we hear are real. It's going to be each one of us that have to be oriented to the truth within ourselves and what it is that we hear and take in, and then how it is that we understand that energy. How do we break that down into, the potential for a real truth? Because I'm not sure that the outside world brings that truth to us this week. Although I wonder, it could happen, right? It could happen. So together, these aspects, the Mercury retrograde opposition to Uranus and the trine to Neptune, are kind of a cosmic honesty window. And it also makes me wonder about karma, karma, where you can't pretend you don't know what you know, right? You have to actually act on what you know. And where you have been playing false, it becomes like crystal clear to everyone about what the lies have been. And you can't go back to the old storyline once you've let loose the genie from the bottle, right? So now it's out there. So this is a powerful moment this week then for all of us to listen deeply, to trust your instincts, your inner voice, and to let breakthroughs and insights guide your next steps forward. I wish we could convince politicians to listen to astrology, right? And hope that they would, take it to heart when things like this are going on. All right, before I go on, let's say good morning to everybody out there. I first saw Christine this morning. Good to see you with us. And Julie, good morning. Terry, great to have you with us. And Jackie, happy moon day, she says. Good morning, Amy. She says, crazy is my norm. I kind of feel like that these days for sure, Amy. I'm right with you there. Teddy, good morning. YouTube has you as the thumbnail and center of our huge screen. Well, that's interesting. There is it depends on if you're listening on a phone, if you're watching it on a phone, or if you're watching it on a laptop, because now StreamYard has two ways for me to stream. One is through the vertical alignment, which most people get when they're watching on YouTube, on their phones, and then the wider landscape one that is for people who are watching on the regular laptop or tablet type situation. So maybe that's what that is, and maybe you have to choose one or the other. Regular picture size on your Kindle, exactly right. So they're giving people the option to watch the broadcast in whatever orientation is based on the device that they're watching from. So hopefully that's helpful. Good morning, Sandra. Good to see you. Joan Durchie. Good morning, Namira. Hello. Music. I am from India. And do you know what astrology is called in Hindi? Vedic astrology. I'm not sure if there's another word that you're meaning, but I don't know what that is. Good morning, Brianna Klaus. It's good to see you. Teddy, can we still use hearts and likes to help? It's like a video game doing. Yes, use hearts. Use hearts if you can. And of course, thumbs up if you are on YouTube. And good morning, Narges. Good to have you. Jackie says, okay, flu tube acting up. Oh my goodness. Probably because I did something different, right? That always seems to do it. And Nargis, your video seems to be zoomed in. Not sure if it's just for me. Okay, so lesson learned. No more of the perspective from vertical. So on YouTube, you have 2 broadcasts playing now. One is a thumbnail and has a weird buzz sound every few minutes. 2 is a normal size broadcast. Don't know what to say about that now. I don't know. Maybe you have to choose. If you have 2 things open, like you're watching it on one, if you're watching it on 2 different, like a tablet and your phone, that may be the problem because you're hearing the reverb maybe. Don't know. Redacted, of course, Christine says. Indeed. Good morning, Jana. Good morning, Asa. Christine, watching on my iPhone and seeing you full screen. Okay, that may be why the vertical is so powerful, because then you get the whole screen. Good morning, Tamra. Good to have you with us from the chilly Catskills. Jackie, on my phone, it was just zoomed in. And YouTube is norm for me, Tamara says. Good. So different ways in which we're seeing things. I'll have to go back after the broadcast today and watch it a bit and see what's going on. All right. So let's go to the most important energy of the week, and that is a new moon in Scorpio in the gates 14, which is about creation. And of course, the earth not necessarily being hit there. The moon and the sun together at 14, the earth in the gate 2. So we have allowing, and we have creation, and the liberation of truth. No, just sounds so interesting, right? The liberation of truth. Now I'm going to add my chart for this new moon to the screen for all of you to see. And, as you can tell, it's a very busy kind of chart. There are 3 particular things that we're going to be talking about. One is the stellium that you see down the bottom in the sign of Scorpio, highlighted there in yellow, where we have actually Venus, who's not necessarily close enough to be in a conjunction to the new moon, but Venus, the black moon Lilith, moon, sun, and Mercury retrograde, all in Scorpio, all at this new moon. And if you notice the degrees, the new moon, and so the moon, the sun, and Mercury, all in the 28th degree. So they're in an exact conjunction for all, intents and purposes, with the black moon Lilith just 2 degrees behind that. So also a conjunction. I added Venus in there just as a spoken thing, so you realize that there's more going on in Scorpio than meets the eye, right? There's a lot of depth going on here. The second big thing is the kite. You can't miss it. It's highlighted there in blue. It is a kite with the apex pointed up at Uranus at 29 degrees of Taurus. One of the sextile arms pointing to Neptune at 29 degrees Pisces, and other one over at almost 26 or 25.02 degrees of Jupiter at 2502 in Cancer, and the bottom point at the Mercury retrograde. So that Mercury retrograde opposing Uranus takes on a little bit more punch and power because it's also happening during a very powerful new moon, right? So it takes on a lot of potential for new expression, right? Based on our intentions and what we want to see as the truth. And so this whole week's energy pivots around this new moon, and it's not just potent. This is a whole new beginning. It's almost like I could call it a soul reset moment where all things are possible, right? All things are possible. Remember that Scorpio is a sign that allows us to also clear out baggage, clear out old fears and old patterns. And in fact, almost insists that for transformation to happen, we have to let go of so much, right? So once we let go, it opens up the space for transformation and becomes a phoenix moment, right? This is this phoenix energy that we've been feeling pretty much this whole entire year. Now, in human design, the sun and moon are meeting at the gate 14, called the gate of creation. We've already talked a bit about this. And while the earth is holding this receptive frequency in the gate 2, the moon is really anchoring the whole experience between the sun and the earth. And it's all about allowing creation, or creating a receptive allowing of new energies. So the pairing of these two in this gate really helps us crystallize what this new moon is all about. It's you're being asked to create from alignment, not from ambition. That seems upside down, doesn't it? Right? Because our whole world has been oriented to drive and ambition. And now this would seem to say, look, it's getting you nowhere. In fact, I realized this last week that all the, work that I'm doing and the scraping and it wasn't working. It's not worked. And yet I keep getting caught up in a paradigm in this world that says that you got to keep forcing, you got to keep pushing, you got to show up 3 times a day on Facebook in order to get seen, heard, valued, recognized. And I was burning out, right? I'm burning Asa out. And she's a manifester. So we're being asked to create from a different space. Rather that ambition, drive, gotta do, it's coming from alignment, just aligning with what is good for you, that feels good to you, that takes you into where it is that you want to be. You're being asked to create from your inner truth and not outer pressure, because the world outside of us pressures us so much to do, to be, and numbers drive me nuts. Right? Because they're showing, they show you either how good you're doing in terms of ambition or how not good you're doing in terms of ambition. And really, that is not what I care about. What I care about is talking to each one of you, to helping you understand yourselves and your charts and your soul purpose and what have you, right? So for everybody, not just for me, but for everybody, now check the ambition at the door. And instead move with what it is that you want to align with from a creative space, from being the true you, and from openness, not force, right? That's a really big part of this new moon. It's creation plus allowing that equals creation that flows, not creation that you wrestle into some kind of existence, right? Wrestling the alligators to get them, to line up and do what you want them to do, or corralling the cats. You know how that goes. And that scheme echoes through the astrology of this new moon as well. So if we go back to the new moon, by the way, it is on Thursday, November 20th at 1:47 a.m. And that is in East Coast time. So technically speaking, it happens on the 19th on Wednesday for those of us in the time zones from, from Central Time to Mountain Time, Pacific Time, Hawaiian Time, Alaska Time, right? So for those of us further west, it's all on the 19th. For those of you on the East Coast, Central Time, East Coast, and further east, it is happening on Thursday. So it's bridging 2 different days. And it is a moon, a new moon that I just feel like has this cluster. Well, it has this cluster of planets in Scorpio, as you see down. I don't think you can see my cursor, but down here at the bottom, so somewhere about the 6 o'clock position, you'll see where I've written in Scorpio. And the Scorpio stellium here is about depth and courage and truth rising. And when you have this cluster of planets in any one sign, it really is the defining energy of whatever that moment is. So the defining moment for the new moon. And Scorpio concentrates everything, right? Brings everything into this focus. Emotions run deeper. Insights are sharp and they sharpen, right? As you look deeper, you see more. And what has been hidden comes to the surface, right? So with Mercury retrograde conjunct the sun and the moon on that new moon, your inner voice becomes louder, and maybe louder than the noise outside of you, right? As you're giving yourself time to really focus in on what is true for you. And, this becomes like a revelation transit. Now, the kind that helps you see a pattern, right? What's been operating in behind the scenes in your life forever. Maybe a wound that is triggered and has been triggered, but maybe you were, packaging it up and looking at it from outside of you. Maybe a desire that you can see now with absolute clarity. What is it that I really truly desire? So Scorpio doesn't reveal the truth here to shame you, make you feel bad or guilty. It reveals truth to free you, right? To free you from those chains that have bound you. In a way, this has a very chironic feel to it. Chiron, the planet of wounding and healing, where things are coming up for you to release so that you can go on forward with your intentions in a new and powerful way. So, what story are you done carrying? What story is ready to be jettisoned? And then what truth inside you is ready for air, for fresh air, for a new life, right? For a new breath. So, it's a very powerful moon that we are finding ourselves in. And here's the deal. We're right now in the lead up to that new moon. So right now is the purging, right? So from today, tomorrow, the next day, maybe even all last week, and maybe even over the weekend, you were possibly in this purging mood. Like, what do I have to let go of? What's in my way? What do I want to achieve? I keep going back to that question. Because if you aren't ready to purge, in the days before the new moon, then when the new moon comes, it'll be much harder to just embrace that energy of newness and make that next step forward. So the healing journey begins really now, even though we aren't at that new moon yet. You're kind of in the dark of the moon. Now, funny, interesting story here. Often in the dark of the moon, the things that are going to come up after the new moon come from dreams. So pay attention to what you're dreaming at night. Pay attention to when you're daydreaming, what is it that you're daydreaming of? What's the conversation that's rolling around in your mind? Because those things are clues to what the new moon will be bringing for you. Now, if you look at the kite, right, the kite is made up of several pieces here. A Grand Water Trine, right? You see the trine here between Jupiter on the upper left and Neptune and Saturn pretty much on the upper right. And then down at the bottom, the sun, moon, Mercury, black moon, Lilith, all together there in water, Grand Water Trine. Then at the top of the kite is a minor Grand Trine. And that is made up of the sextiles between Uranus and Jupiter, and then Uranus and Neptune, Saturn, and then Neptune, Saturn, and Jupiter being in a trine to one another. So we have this very complex sort of configuration, but it is bringing us intuition, healing, and maybe spiritual integration at a very high level. The potential is at very high levels for all of us. And the new moon is supported by this stunning Grand Water Trine and minor Grand Trine, and with Jupiter and Saturn and Neptune and Uranus and the Mercury Sun connection there as well. And it is creating, some people might call this a soft energy, but I think this is not so soft. I feel like this is pretty insistent, powerful movement toward emotional wisdom in our lives, right? So what has held you back from, being truly in your intuitive self, right? Or following your intuition and your instinct, your gut, rather than, following logic or your mind. And water trines, especially grand water trines here, help you to feel what you've been avoiding and to release what you've been holding on to tightly. So if you've been avoiding something in your life, it's probably right in your face, right? And it's ready to be released. Jupiter expands our emotional intelligence from the sign of Cancer. And then Neptune and Saturn together open up the spiritual channel, dissolving old fears and creating a new structure or form for which we can live from, right? From a higher perspective. And this is emotional alchemy in its highest, right? This is the kind that transforms our pain into purpose and our confusion into clarity. So that Grand Water Trine sextile to, or the minor Grand Trine that creates the kite, so very powerful. Now let's look at another reason why this might be so powerful, and that's because Uranus is at the 29th degree of Taurus. he's retrograde, so he's taken us backward. He's taken us back through the economics, the banking, the finances, the fears, the insecurities, the instabilities that have been created in our world over the last 7 years, right? He was transiting Taurus for about 7 years. And this final degree of the sign is a karmic release point. It's not the only karmic release point, though, because he will also in retrograde, he's going backwards. So when he goes direct again and heads forward to Gemini once more, he will pass through this karmic degree again. So pay attention right now to what's wanting to break through, what's wanting to break free in your life, because this is a moment that is going to be repeated. It's been repeated. It's already come up once, right? Before he moved into Gemini, July 7th of this past summer. And then it's going to come up now. And then it's going to come up once more as we get further into 2026. April, I believe it is. You'll see this repeat, or March, April. And, this is this apex energy. And this is where clarity can strike like lightning in your life. Insight comes quickly. You might feel an inner click, right? Something that just clicks into place, like the universe is snapping something into place for you. And you now know with no uncertain force that that's where you need to go, right? And Uranus, in this case, doesn't really break things to break them. He's not breaking the system to make us suffer, right? This is Uranus breaking what restricts our authenticity. So really waking you up and saying, okay, this is not working. This is not what I want. This is what I want. And this is the direction that I'm going to move in, right? Now, you're not just planting new intentions then with this new moon. Because remember, this is all part of a cycle of energy that's going on in the new moon, activating already this week, right? In the dark. You're reclaiming the power behind your intentions. So if you're trying to plant the seed for a garden of sunflowers, then you've planted the seed, but now you have to do all the things that support the intention of building that garden, right? Or getting those plants to grow and to thrive. And you're not just starting something new. This isn't willy-nilly, hey, I just think I'll start this. You're releasing what has blocked creation for you in the past. Again, what blocked creation of that garden? Well, I hadn't, torn up the soil yet, right? I didn't have the tools to break the ground so that I could do that. Now you have to have the courage to go get the tools that you need to break the ground, to sow the seeds of what it is that you want to grow. And then in so doing, you're releasing yourself from the block that has been created from the past that's kept you from doing what you wanted to do. And of course, we're not just listening to our intuition, we're trusting it enough to act upon it, right? Trust is involved here. Now, let's look at Scorpio and the gate 14. It says, create from the truth of who you are. That creating from the truth of who you are establishes abundance, right? It's not what you do so much that creates abundance. It's when you're doing it authentically from a place of knowing who you truly are. And then gate 2, the opposite gate, the Earth's gate during this time, says, let the path reveal itself. Stop forcing and start seeing what's right in front of you, right? Sometimes we're so obtuse, we don't see what's right here. So the new moon is a moment this month where something long held deep within you can break free, where a calling, a truth, a creation begins to form, to crystallize, to come into being. And it's not happening because you're pushing it to happen. It's happening because you're allowing it to happen. You're allowing versus pushing. All right. I'm going to stop sharing this for 1 minute so I can go back and see. Well, I'm just going to go back to the screen and see how everybody's doing out here. Jackie, makes so much sense with it being my dad's heavenly birthday. Oh, and today then it's like a reset, like me having the blank canvas. I love that. That's a great way to look at that. Kamal says, aloha, soul family. I had a very sad weekend as I lost my grandpa. Oh, our hearts go with you. That's So sad, but just know you're not alone in that. May his soul swim smoothly into the other world, indeed. Good morning, Terry. It's good to have you with us. Terry Strauss, and a new moon to boot, right? Yes, we love those new moons. So let's now go to something else that is happening this week. First of all, questions about the new moon. Do you want to know where Scorpio is in your chart? Right? Scorpio is the sign that looks like an M with a tail. Like you can think of it as a body with the scorpion tail on it. So when you find that in your chart, that's the house that is where the new moon will be. And you'll notice there are quite a few planets in it if you have, if you're getting a current transit chart. And whatever house it is the area of life where that breakthrough is occurring. Right. For me, it happens to be in the 5th house of creativity. So interesting because there's a whole lot of creative flow happening, a new way of creative flowing. And that made perfect sense for me. But maybe you have this going on, let's say in the 9th house. The 9th house would be a house of the bigger perspective where you maybe having Scorpio there, you've done well with the deep dive, right? But maybe you've gotten blinders on and you need to open up and see the bigger picture. So if you have a 9th house Scorpio, it's time maybe to look from the wider perspective, the wider lens, and see what it is that you maybe have been missing in your deep dive. Let's say you have this happening in your 3rd house, which in this particular chart, if this were a person, that's exactly where it would be happening, in the 3rd house. So if you have Scorpio in your 3rd house, it would be about communication. It would be about your mind. I would say that you're doing the deep dive through what is going on in your mind, the mindset that might be causing you to not be able to get where you want to go, right? That is creating havoc in some way. But there's also that energy of communication in the 3rd house. So, what is the message? Is the message one thing, but your mind is somewhere else? Because that's a mismatch, right? You might have to course correct that one. So TD Hawk says it's ruling her 10th house with Neptune there. So the 10th house, a 10th house Neptune says you're likely on a path of spirituality as a career or a profession. Neptune also sometimes points to a music profession or an acting profession. Something where you get to try on these different like tones of who you are and share them with others. So 10th house would be, okay, what's going on in my career profession, or how am I using my authority in the world? How am I stepping up and being authentic in sharing my passions with the world? So I hope that makes sense for you. And if you have more questions, I'll come back and look at that and see what the rest of the conversation is about. So right now, let's go on. Let's see, what time is it? Oh, I'm doing good on time. Good. So let's go on to what happens later this week with the sun opposing Uranus. And what kind of revelation is that bringing us? What kind of rebirth is in the offing, and the power of actual truth? Interesting, right? So after we go through the new moon portal, then the cosmos wastes no time in bringing up something else, right? The sun and Mercury retrograde traveling together through the gate 14. Then in the gene keys, by the way, this is the energy of bounteousness in its highest. I just love that word, bounteousness. It just feels so good, bounty, right? In its lowest expression, it's competence. And competence in a low expression, meaning you're just doing this, you're just doing this like at some low level instead of, creating from this bounty, you're at this low level. And then it may be even in that gene key, what you're doing is you're working too hard to get to where you want to be. And instead of magnetizing things to you, which is the gift level, you're forcing, right? So instead, become like the magnet and be attractive to the things that are correct for you by aligning with your truth, right? So it's very simple. It sounds so simple. In practice, we get in our way because our minds get involved. And they're facing off, of course, with Uranus at the 29th degree. And, I would like to say that Uranus at the 29th degree is a liberation point in some ways, right? Liberating you from I don't know, let's call it from, the chains that have bound you, right? You're being liberated. And the opposition from the sun to Uranus and Mercury to Uranus are really like a lightning bolt that's striking in deep water. And imagine how the force of lightning hitting water travels through to the depths, right? It's not superficial. Lightning hitting water will travel just like it does when it hits the earth, it travels through the ground. But hitting water, it travels through the water, and then it exposes what's been submerged, right? It clarifies what has been confusing, and it electrifies the path that has been forming beneath the surface. So things getting clearer. And in the gene keys, when we look at the gene key 14, it teaches us that true abundance is coming from or arises when we stop chasing and we start aligning and allowing. So Uranus shocks you into that alignment, right? That's that 29th degree. He removes what drains you, right? When you think about the things that have been going on around you, what is being removed from you? What's being lifted off of your shoulders? And he also illuminates what feeds you. What is it that aha that says, that's where I thrive. That's where I want to be. And he wakes you up to what your soul has been asking for all along, right? And this is the moment in the rebirth cycle where the phoenix breaks through the surface, where he's not yet in full flight, but unmistakably rising, right? We're moving, we're transforming from that lower level energy into the higher level phoenix energy. And because Mercury retrograde is part of the same opposition, the clarity comes from within you. It's not coming from something outside of you. I mean, something outside of you may show you the trigger of what it is that's coming up. It maybe is something you remember that you forgot about yourself. Maybe it's you reclaiming a part of yourself that you buried or got buried in the rush of life. Maybe you speak a truth that's been waiting for that moment, for that truth to emerge. And the Scorpio stellium, all of these planets down here in the stellium, Venus, the black moon Lilith, the sun, moon, and Mercury are all bundled together to deepen the psychological courage that it takes for you to face these things, right? To bring them up, to allow the transformation to take place. Scorpio doesn't want you to avoid the truth, right? Our Scorpio energy wants to be empowered by it, not debased by it, but empowered by it. So the opposition energy is a cosmic announcement that says, hey, you've outgrown something and your soul knows it. And now you have to let the new arise, right? Now you have to let the truth cleanse the old and let the rebirth complete one more layer, right? You're like this onion, you're peeling away one more thing coming off, right? So that you can really live your truth. Okay. I don't see any other questions yet. So I'm going to stop sharing here and boom, there we go. All right, so now, as if the new moon isn't the only big news of the week, the sun is also right after that new moon, the very next day moves off into Sagittarius. So we have a sign change, an energetic shift coming as we move on through the week. So we have a new direction, and that direction is the return of fire, some fire energy coming back for us. And after all the depth and all the revelation, we get a shift, right? We get to move away. We're not moving away from the transformation because that's still, taking place, but we're able to do something with it to find true meaning in the energies that we have been experiencing through that new moon portal. Now, when the sun moves into Sagittarius, you move from the waters of rebirth into the fire of vision. Sagittarius is a sign that is ruled by the planet Jupiter. Jupiter is about the vision that we have, the higher vision, the more expansive, optimistic, visionary you, right? And this is where the emotional and intuitive clarity that came from the new moon, from all of the aspects, even from the beginning of the week, and from the Grand Water Trine that's been activated for a while, begin to form into a direction, right? So even though you may have been treading the water for most of the week, as soon as the sun moves into Sagittarius, now things begin to really take shape, right? Everything that you discovered in Scorpio energy begins to ask new questions. And those new questions are, what does this mean for the path ahead? What truth am I now willing to live? And how am I going to use what I've released so that I can rise, right? Like the phoenix. So here is where we really get to bring in the gene key 2, right? The second part of this equation, because during this week we have the 14-2 activated, and the Earth's the grounding point, carrying the energy in the gene keys of dislocation in the shadow. Now, I'm going to say that dislocation optimally happens before a major transition, right? You become untethered, you get untied from the past. And then comes orientation in the gift, right? The gift level is orientation, like a compass, right? The 2 sits on the identity center, which is called your internal compass. And now you're reorienting. And the highest expression of the gate 2 is unity, where we come into oneness, right? Oneness with our higher selves, with our inner selves, with our outer world, even when that is possible. It's kind of the womb space. This is very feminine energy. It's the field of receptivity. It is the river returning to its source, right? Returning to its source. And when we pair that with Sagittarian fire, at least in the beginning, we have this inner compass in us, this voice that says, this way, this is the truth. This is the one that honors your truth, right? Go that way. So we have a very interesting change up in that energy right after the new moon, right? So, and remember, Sagittarius energy is all about truth. It's about the wisdom of adventure, seeing life as a greater adventure, and fire of creation, right? The fire of creation energy. All right. Now, there's also something else interesting happening, and I did have that. I'm going to add my chart back here again, because there's also this pink line that I hadn't talked about yet, and that is during the new moon, the planet Mars in Sagittarius already, right? Already digging up the truth and looking at the bigger picture and the visionary self, imagining what are the next steps, comes into a sextile with Pallas Athena in Aquarius. And Pallas Athena is a very strategic, feminine energy. It's wise energy that looks for the strategy that's going to take us on this journey. And Mars being already in Sagittarius has us motivated. It has, a purpose in mind. Maybe you're feeling purposeful, even though maybe you haven't yet aimed yourself in that direction. And there's mission orientation here. Like, I have a mission. I'm on a mission. And he's forming this harmonious sextile with Pallas Athena in Aquarius. And she's the strategist. She's the pattern seer. And she's the one who sees the architecture of the future when she sits in Aquarius. Who else is in Aquarius? Pluto, which means she's conjunct Pluto, or she has been conjunct Pluto. So this is where the breakthrough becomes a plan, right? This is where those aha moments, those revelatory energies become strategized. Your insight becomes direction, and your intuition becomes the strategy. Mars gives you the courage, Pallas Athena giving you the clarity that you need, and Sagittarius, the vision, seeing the bigger picture, right? The road ahead. Together, they're really saying that we're ready. You are ready to make the move. Trust the new path that's forming, even if you cannot see the whole map, right? You can't see everything yet. Do we ever, right? Sometimes we have to take those steps and trust and have faith that the next step will be realized, or the next step will be reviewed or revealed at the right moment. So if we bring all of this together for this particular week that we find ourselves in, the water Scorpio Grand Trine energy is cleansing us, right? Creating a cleaning of the impurities, letting go of the old. And the gate 14 empowering us to be creative and to be acting from our creative center. The gate 2 orienting us to the right direction, and then creating the sense of allowing, being receptive to what it is that the next step is, and showing up that way rather than forcing. Uranus is liberating us, right? Setting us free, unlocking those chains. Sagittarius inspires us to reach higher, to aim true. Mars and Pallas Athena helping us to take the right action based on a strategy that's correct for each of us as individuals, our own paths forward. So this is one of those rare weeks that we get where our internal and externals align, right? Where we're bringing together into wholeness, where rebirth turns into momentum, and where clarity turns into the courage to take the next step, to take action. And, by the time you get to the end of this week, like Friday, we'll be having a totally different conversation on Friday, because the energy has changed you. You're not the same person that you entered the week with when you end up at the end of this week. Something fundamentally shifts within. You've crossed a threshold, right? You walked through the doorway. And now Sagittarius can light that fire under your feet so that you can walk your truth forward, right? Rather than staying stuck in the old, you're ready to move forward. All right. Questions, comments. Let's see. Tamara says, since I have the gate 2 hanging, and so with 14, does this now, yes, that whole pathway is completed, right? Now you have that whole channel of progress. So everybody does. Every one of you has the channel of progress now defined, right? Let me show you my human design chart here, which I forgot to show earlier. So here's the channel. The sun and moon and Mercury retrograde are sitting here at the 14, with the earth sitting across from it at the gate 2. So the whole channel is now defined for everyone, right? So you all have the ability to progress forward, but not by forcing, by allowing, right? By just seeing. It's almost like taking the path of least resistance, right? If there's not resistance, it's the right path, right? Now, that doesn't mean that there won't be challenges or anything when you take that path, because certainly, we also grow quite frequently through the challenges we face. But for the most part, what we're saying here is that you have a creative spark that lies deep within you right here at 14. Even if you did not have 14 defined in your chart, it's still there, right? Everybody has all of the human design. You're not missing anything, right? You have it all. It's just a matter of how it plays out in your energy signature. If you have a defined 14, it's playing out as a broadcast. It's coming from that planet that sits at the gate 14, or that defines it for you. If you have the gate 2, then it's also playing out in the planet, from the planet that's sitting there. Now we have the sun and the earth and the moon and Mercury retrograde all sitting at this gate 14, that's creating a path for the expression of your creative energy. I hope that makes sense, because this is big. And it is, remember last week we had the 4323, a channel that was made by the 2 gates that the sun and earth were sitting at. Here's another space where we have a channel formed by the 2 gates that the sun and earth are sitting at. And, this does not happen all the time. It happens, in these 2 gates, and it happens with the 4037. I don't think it happens with any other gates that we have, right? Just those 6 gates can create channels. And it becomes an important thought process here, where if you've been forcing yourself, if you've been pushing yourself, this is where you get to step back a little bit, right? And you're all going to live this out, right? Because if, like, in my chart, I do not have the 2 or the 14 defined. It's not hanging at all. But now it is defined today, and through the 22nd, I believe it is defined. It's there. It's in my face. It's in your face if you also have 14 and 2 open. Let's say you have one or the other of those two gates defined, but the other half of it's open, like Tamara's saying, she has a hanging gate too. And that means that the 14 sun, Mercury, and moon during the new moon are completing that channel for you. But for the whole week, the sun is going to be there completing that channel. So now your hanging two, allowing, and magnetism is now connected to your creative heart, your creative soul. Okay. And the same thing happens if you have the 14 defined, but the 2 was open. Now you have that defined, and that's completing the channel. And if you already have the channel of progress, the 14-2, defined in your chart, look at what planets are sitting there by birth. So if it's your birthday this week, then you have probably the 14 and the 2 defined by the sun and the earth in your natal chart. But now you're adding the moon. Now you're adding Mercury retrograde. And maybe that just brings you some more insight into how you create abundance this week, or how you create abundance going forward, right? Okay, that was a great question, Tamara. Thank you. And does anybody else have any other questions about that? Oh, thank you, Jacqueline. This has been one of the most insightful transits you have explained. I'm trying to get deeper these days. I hope you guys noticed that. All right. So let's pull a card or two. What time is it? I have 4 minutes. Good. So I'm going to pull a soul coaching card. We had some really good luck with that card the other day. And I'm going to find a dragon. It's passion, right? The dragon brings us passion. Let me take that out. So, all right. I'm going to pull the dragon first. It really wants to come and play. Okay. Oh, this dragon. Oh, it's pink. This is the rose pink dragon. Look at that picture over here. You can see it better. The rose pink dragon prepares your heart to connect with the higher facets of the cosmic heart. And underneath that, it says, open your heart to warm-hearted love and diamond light. Connect with the love of the universe. That sounds very Neptune and Pisces, doesn't it? All right, let's read the whole card. Rose pink dragon. See what dimension you're coming from. The rose pink. Okay, am I blind? Earth. Those are fourth dimensionals. Oh my goodness. Rose pink dragon. There you are. Oh, a seventh dimensional dragon. And sorry about that, guys. My mind was not seeing that. So it is the first of the seventh dimensional dragons. And it says, rose is the vibration of pure and beautiful, warm-hearted love. And these seventh dimensional dragons radiate this higher love. Our heart center has 33 facets, which range from the green of conditional love through pink to pure white. When we are ready to open the pure white transcendent petals of the center of our glowing heart, the rose pink dragons help us to connect our heart with Venus, the cosmic heart, where we tune into the cosmic love and oneness. These beautiful dragons are attracted to us as soon as our heart is ready. We may feel our heart center become warm when they are near us. People will then respond to the rose pink that is starting to shine in our energy fields. Here's our guidance. Receiving this card suggests that your higher heart is ready to connect to the cosmic heart. Ask the rose pink dragons to touch your heart center and sense its awakening and expanding. When the 4 central petals open, they sparkle with diamond light. They contain the higher facets of the love energy of the universe. Be aware of them lighting up so that all 33 facets of your heart center are active. You may see or sense a shaft of rose pink light flowing from your heart right up to the cosmic heart, which opens wide to you. Breathe soft, warm pink light into your aura. Notice how you transcend your emotions as the rose pink dragons stay close to you and light you up. Whoa. This is a very powerful dragon, right? Very powerful. Love, I love love. All right. I'm in love with love. Let's do a soul coaching one too, since we have a moment, and see what that brings for us. Soul coaching is by Denise Lynn, and it is an oracle deck that I got one month. I don't know, in the Oracle of the Month Club thing. Ooh. And I love it. And I loved the deck, but I put it away and forgot I had it. But when I overturned my decks last week, it showed back up. And look at this. I just pulled the card that's called Abundance. Abundance. Soul coaching. Look at all those balloons. All right. Can't make this stuff up. It happens all the time for us. And it's card number 1 of the deck. And its meaning says, open yourself to receive. There's gate 2 and a morsel. Avalanches of abundance are waiting to flood your being. Everything is blossoming and bearing fruit now. The prosperity you seek is yours. Abundance is your birthright and is coming to you in many ways, including money, energy, time, and love. Have faith and release any fear of loss or lack, which are only perceptions. There is an abundance of everything. Give deeply and fully without fear, for the more you give, the more you'll receive. It's a universal law. The Creator desires that you prosper in all areas of your life. A windfall is coming. Align your vibration with the energy of that which you desire to manifest. Remember, it's alignment and allowing, not forcing and pushing. Whatever you focus on will grow in leaps and bounds as you focus on gratitude for the abundance that you already have. Your prosperity will increase. I love it. Here's the affirmation. Let me see if I can show it to you here. There we go. All my needs are met above and beyond my greatest expectations. All my needs are met above and beyond my greatest expectations. Pretty cool. All right. Abundance and our rose pink dragon. Great way to start the week. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me today. I will see you on Friday. Remember, go to the Living Astro Design community. We'll be posting in there this week and interacting with you there. All right. Much love. Bye for now.